Hello, it's Ruby and it's nearly Christmas, so of course I am in the process of making all of my Christmas cards. I do have a selection of Christmas cards. I've got some which are like ready printed. I got these in the Bodleian gift shop and they're Tolkien ones, so they're illustrations from his letters from Father Christmas that he wrote for his children. So I've got the Father Christmas ones, and last year I sent the Christmas tree ones, but I've only got 8 of these, so I'm sending these out to a few people, but most of the people that I write to, I will make them, and I really do just enjoy making my Christmas cards. So we're going to be making them today, but to put a spin on it, I thought that we could talk through weird Victorian Christmas traditions at the same time, because by golly there are some strange ones, like very strange ones. I think it's just so interesting how we do get Christmas as we know it from the Victorians. Of course, there was that film that came out a couple of years ago called The Man Who Invented Christmas, and Charles Dickens did invent Christmas as we know it today. Christmas used to be very, very different. So in the 17th century, for example, it was much more common for people to give gifts to their employers. So instead of gifts being given to the less fortunate, it was much more common for gifts to be given to like masters and to employers as a way to say thank you, which is quite a big difference to how we celebrate Christmas today. It's funny because we've got this assumption, I think, that Christmas used to be much more solemn, but I don't know if that's really true. Like, the festivities were very, very festive. For example, there was this thing called, what was it called? I need to find the name of it. It was called Carnival, and it would be on the 12th day of Christmas, and it was where somebody from the kingdom would become king for the day. So you'd have all of the roles and all of the cast positions switched, which was particularly striking in this period where like class dynamics are obviously like particularly strong and entrenched, and you've even got things like sumptuary laws saying that people cannot dress in a way that makes them appear to be higher class than they are. That's why the story of Macbeth is so shocking, and why everyone is so shocked as to why he's trying to like climb the ranks and become king. But Twelfth Night was absolute chaos. If you think of like Mardi Gras, it's that kind of thing, and very, very festive, very fun, lots of alcohol, and perhaps even more merriment to like higher extremities than we see today. So, strange Victorian Christmas traditions, and I actually should start making some of these cards because I send so many cards. I think this year I'm sending like 100, and they take a while, especially because like I will just shoulds very quickly, but like I write a whole page. I think it makes sense, since we are doing Christmas cards, to start with the very, very, very odd Victorian Christmas cards, which I'm sure you've come across at some point, and if you haven't, then you're in for a treat because they are just so wonderfully absurd. But first I'm just going to get some stamps out. This is our big stamp box, and my mum and I do like to make stamps every year, so I'm particularly looking for, I've got a little made with love stamp, so I might put that on the back. They're mainly from Newlybird, and we do love Newlybird. They're all like handmade ones. I also use my watercolour paints. I've got some normal ones, and then these are metallic ones, like gold ones, and they're very nice and festive. Before we get started though, before we start making Christmas cards, I'm going to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is the wonderful NordVPN. So NordVPN is the fastest VPN server out there, and you can basically change your location to anywhere in the world. So even though I'm here at the moment in the UK, I could change my VPN so that my computer thinks that I'm in Germany. I always have it set up, and it's a great way to increase privacy, because especially when you're out of the house and you're using a public Wi-Fi network, sometimes hackers can access your personal data through that Wi-Fi network if it's not like an official one, and so it's always better to be safe than sorry and just change your VPN so that your data just is protected. But it's also really cool because you can use it to look at like how search engines work elsewhere in the world. So for example, if because a lot of Christmas traditions obviously come from Germany. This is the map, so you can just choose a location. Any of these little dots represent locations you can choose, and there are so many to choose from, like over 4,200 I believe. Like, it is a lot. If I click Hamburg, I'm now like using a German VPN, so I do not know any German, so then I'm going to copy that, and I am just going to pop it in here. and it's obviously going to come up with German ones instead because I'm using a German search engine. So it's just quite an interesting tool sometimes to use for research. I mean, this one isn't actually, this one is an English one from 1848, and funnily enough, this one was originally printed in black and white because colour printing wasn't an option at this point. Like, colour printing only came about at the end of the 19th century, and so these were printed in black and white, and then they would have been hand coloured in, which is an incredible labour. And you can see that, like, it just says from, this one's from F.L. Hardy, but very different to the kind of things that we have today. So if you want to try NordVPN, then you can get an extra 4 months free on the 2-year plan if you use my link www.nordvpn.com/Ruby. If you've been meaning to try a VPN, it's a very good idea. And yes, kind of moving on from this 1848 Christmas card, let's think about some later ones, because Christmas cards started to get very weird not long after that. I'm going to draw stars in this at the same time. So I thought we could just go through some of these and think about them, because they are odd. When I say they are odd, I am not lying. We're going to start with something which could be deemed Christmassy, which is this robin. Only, of course, it's not alive. It's a dead robin. I really don't understand this. Like, people are looking for festivity. They are looking for happiness and joviality, and instead you get a card with a dead robin on the front. I mean, I get that the Victorians had more familiarity with death, like it wasn't as unusual to see a corpse. You know, in today's society it's rare to see a dead body, but in the Victorian period, with things like death photography, it actually wasn't super unusual. And if you didn't know, the death photography is where family portraits could be taken after somebody died. It was often children, and so that they could get a family portrait and everyone could have a photograph together, the corpse would be photographed alongside the other children. And it is very uncanny, very eerie, when you look at kind of these children all lined up and you know that one of them isn't actually alive. Yes, people see death, but it's still not festive. Like, you'd probably still rather not receive this. Okay, so a few more of my favourites. We have got these two are both like walking vegetables. At first I thought this one was a beetle, but then I spoke with someone and they said no, I think it's a turnip instead. And he's holding a little like wooden carrot that says "A Merry Christmas to you." I also love that he's wearing a monocle. It's just like bizarre, like so absurd and so bizarre, and I love how bizarre it is. Like, it does actually make me extremely happy. And then this one is a spring onion. Oh my gosh, is it an onion? It's an onion with a face, and it kind of like weirdly reminds me of the Flower Fairies by Cecily Barker. Like, it looks very similar, but obviously it's also very different. And I do wonder if it's like a pun on that, because when were they published? Oh, they were published in 1923, so it can't be a pun on that. Okay, so then we've also got this one. I've seen quite a few which are jellyfish ones, which I don't quite understand, because obviously like jellyfish aren't necessarily the most festive. I think the funniest part is that it's out of water. Like, there's a jellyfish who is just in the middle of a snowy landscape, and the child is just looking at the jellyfish. Like, there's nothing wrong with it at all. Okay, this stamp didn't come out quite right, but it's a bear usually. I might paint over it slightly. The next one is of a boy and a Christmas pudding screaming at each other, because of course Christmas puddings are animate creatures who get scared by small boys. The funny thing about the Christmas pudding is they feature in so much artwork and so much like material about Victorian Christmas. Like, the Christmas pudding was the pinnacle of Christmas, and so you'll see like, yes, recipes for it, but also it pops up in so much of the artwork, and there were also lots of political cartoons which use the Christmas pudding, and like, the interesting thing with the Christmas pudding is it was so linked to the British Empire. I studied this a little bit when I was doing a Dickens module at undergrad level, but the Christmas pudding includes ingredients supposedly from every part of the British Empire. So when you make a Christmas pudding, you are recalling the British Empire, and you're recalling everything which is a part of the Christmas Empire, and the idea is that like everything comes together into this one like globe, and it becomes a symbol of British power, which is then eaten in England. So it's actually a very uncomfortable image, and that was very well known at the time because there was so much material being written about the empire of the Christmas pudding. But today I don't think that's something we necessarily know about, and I didn't know about it until my tutor told me. Then we've got two hens sledging, of course, because hens love sledging and hens are incredibly festive. The one you also always see is frogs. Like when I've looked at Victorian Christmas cards, I just keep on seeing frogs. I don't know why they thought frogs were so Christmassy, but they pop up much more than, for example, like deer. Deer don't pop up at all. Robins sometimes, but frogs are everywhere in these. Here's another frog here. Another Christmas pudding as well. Ancient Britons ever welcome. So we've got like the Christmas pudding and then next to it the potato. I don't know precisely, but this does, especially with the Union Jacks, this definitely does seem to be a nod to, yeah, like kind of Albion, ancient Albion, and the glory of Albion. Like having the Christmas pudding, which is representing the empire, and then maybe the potato as a representation of England. English cuisine isn't necessarily the most distinctive, but potatoes do feature a lot, so potentially. I don't know what the potato is wearing though. It's wearing like a cloak, like a Father Christmas style cloak. But they are very, very strange. Like this one as well, a rat riding a lobster. I just don't quite understand why, like who looked at this and went, yes, that is definitely festive. But I've been thinking about it more and more, and I read an article about this too. And the idea that Christmas was obviously such a time of festivity and there was so much joviality that like you can represent that through the Christmas cards. So the Christmas cards kind of predict and anticipate the very kind of outlandish nature of Christmas festivities. And it is a change from, you know, what can sometimes be like Christmas cards do tend to be quite solemn and traditional, I think now, like especially in the last like 50 years. But these Victorian ones are just so silly. They kind of speak to a very different way of like celebrating Christmas. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole the other day, thinking about, you know, the song We Wish You a Merry Christmas, which was actually, I don't know when it was written. Oh, it's actually a really recent song. It was only composed in 1909 by Arthur Worrell, who was a lecturer at the University of Bristol. And I was just thinking about the lyrics of it, and in particular, and this is kind of me being quite silly, I always thought that it was "Oh bring us some Vicky pudding" as opposed to "Oh bring us some figgy pudding." And then it was only the other day when I was looking at it that I realised that it was that I had it wrong. So figgy pudding is a lot like Christmas pudding, as you probably know. Oh, these aren't very nice gloves. It's a really ugly colour of glove. And basically it's like a medieval dish, and it's made from lots of dried fruits, and I think it's made with brandy as well. Whereas Vicky pudding sounds absolutely delicious. I do not like figgy pudding or like Christmas pudding, but Vicky pudding, oh my gosh, I looked at a recipe for it and I'll put it on screen because it looks so delicious, and I'm definitely going to try making it. It kind of looks like banana pudding, which I think is an American thing. It's basically where you mix together banana and then custard, and you whisk everything together, and then you put it in the freezer, and then it turns into like a paste, and then you whip in some whipped cream and you put it into a mold, and then you freeze and serve it, and it sounds so good, and I'm definitely going to make it. I don't think it's really a Christmassy dish though, and I was surprised as to why it was being spoken about, because it would require quite a lot of preparation. And can you imagine just going around to someone's house and being like, "Oh, bring us a Vicky pudding," when it's that complicated and difficult to make, and would have needed to have been like prepared in the freezer ahead of time. Figgy pudding makes a lot more sense. It's like kind of going to someone's house today and being like, "Oh, bring us some pavlova." Like, who just has pavlova hanging around in the house? To be fair, we don't have figgy pudding hanging around in the house, but you know what I mean. And also this tradition, this Christmas carol is linked to, I'm not sure if you have heard about this, so I'm sorry. I always feel bad like when I'm doing a video like this, because obviously there are lots of people who are watching this who will know about this, but it also refers to wassailing. And wassailing was a really common practice in well, like early modern Christmas too, I think even maybe medieval Christmas, but it's where you'd go around with a wassailing bowl and you would knock around at people's houses and you would give them glad tidings and wish them well for the new year. So it's kind of a little bit like going around and singing Christmas carol, which is exactly what they're doing in this song, as they're going, oh, we wish you a Merry Christmas, as sending like glad tidings we bring to you and your kin. It's just a musical version of the act of wassailing. But then as a thank you, people would give like some sort of spiced drink to the people to say thank you, and then these would be collected in the wassailing bowl, and it would usually be something like ale, so you'd have like all of these mixed drinks together in your bowl. It kind of sounds really disgusting, if I'm completely honest. I'm just using like gold paint to paint on some stars. I'm just trying to think, what else is there? Oh my gosh, I came across this one recently and I thought this was very, very bizarre. So this was traditionally done on either Christmas Day or maybe Boxing Day, like it kind of depends. But in villages, this is actually vile, this is horrible. Children, like boys, schoolboys, would kill a wren, like a bird, and then kind of parade it around the streets, and it was thought to be a sign of fertility and good luck, and it was supposed to kind of welcome the season in a really positive way, which is absolutely horrendous. But yeah, I do not see how that's Christmassy. There was a complaint in 1852 in volume 697 of A Story of a Family Party Embracing the Familiar Things of Christmas, and it talks about wren hunting on Christmas Day, and says, this strange practice is by no means worthy of association with the other kindly ceremonies of this hallowed season. So even in 1852 there was an awareness that actually this is a horrible tradition to be practicing, which, I mean, I suppose is good, at least that they recognise that it's horrendous that they were doing that, but still the fact that it happened is horrible. And the bird would be like hunted and then killed with a stick, like impaled. Okay, I've now decorated all of my Christmas cards. I did stop filming for a little bit, but they're all like laid out here and I just need to write them now. So thank you very much for watching today's video. It was just quite a chatty, laid back one, as you could probably tell, but I hope you are having a lovely December so far, that you're feeling festive. I'm not feeling that festive yet, I've got to say. I usually do feel festive by this time, but I don't really this year. But I hope that you are feeling festive, and I hope that you have more than just a productive week.